Hi, good afternoon, everyone. Great to be back. Again, my name is Mark Stevens. I'm managing partner at Enable Health, and we are grateful partners to Martin and his excellent team, and just thrilled to be part of this important summit. One of the things we're most excited about, focusing on innovation around the globe and working with leaders like our next speaker, is disruption. You heard in this previous panel, AI. And it's the importance of different ramifications, how AI will be applied in healthcare. I think it's absolutely true, but what's equally true is the importance of the source of the information about AI that you utilize. And in Tom Lawry, who's about to join us, and Tom did a wonderful job, thank you, Tom, with your AI panel yesterday, is to talk about the right information, if you will, about AI and the importance of the source. So what I'm looking for in this next slide, there we go. Great, so on cue, talking about the importance of source information, Tom was just named yesterday as one of the top 20 leaders globally in healthcare for AI. He has, and it is, thank you. And that news just dropped yesterday at 4, and actually Tom was originally scheduled to speak yesterday afternoon, and Martin was gracious enough to move his talk to now. For the reason of having this information on the screen. What Tom can talk about is the importance of all those folks you'll see up on the screen and their interactions throughout healthcare to work together in a multiplier effect in AI. With that, I know we have limited amount of time. Folks, you should know that lunch has been put off for a little bit, so it won't start for another 10 minutes or so relax and enjoy one of the world's top AI experts, Tom Lawry.
Thanks. Okay, two things. I just heard that standing between you and lunch is my session, so I'm going to go fast. Two, with that news, is my head getting bigger yet? Let me find the clicker. Okay, we're going to go fast. We're going to try and stay on schedule. On kudos, while we're passing out kudos, I just want to say congratulations to all of us. We just reached this milestone where recently, for the first time ever, there are now 8 billion humans roaming the planet we call Earth. So think about that. I mean, here come the humans. So people even geekier than I am look at the fact that from the time we developed opposable digits and started walking upright, there have only been 100 billion humans that have ever walked the planet. And here we are at 8 billion. We're going to continue growing as a population. And what's even more interesting to me is the world's older population will continue to grow remarkably fast. Humans age 65 and above are projected to rise from 10% last year to 16% in 2050. In 2050, there's going to be a much bigger base. So those of us who are math geeks, you don't imagine the ramp of what's going to happen with older people. So I look at that. I look at everything that you're doing, you as the experts, which is just to say, as relevant as what you do is today, is only going to become more important. So I'm going to talk about AI and the relevance of what that is to you and to longevity. But I always like to start by saying most of the time when you hear people talking, writing, reading about AI, it's the wrong narrative. We always talk about AI as a technology, and I'm here to say the real narrative is AI is all about empowerment. It's about empowering clinicians, consumers, those of you trying to do something to accomplish something in a new way. AI is about empowerment. It's not about technology. Let me touch on the why behind AI, because many times people talk about it in use in health and medicine, longevity, and they really don't understand the why. And there are many reasons, but just for the time we have, I want you to think about medicine. Ever since it came out of the dark space and into the light of being a medical scientific discipline, everything we've done has always been in the quest for more information. More information to be applied in the hands of clinicians to make good decisions on diagnoses, on treatments, on maintaining health. So think about that just for a second. So going back a ways, we discovered germ theory, and then we had the microscope, and then the stethoscope, and then we discovered X-rays, and we had flat images, and then MRIs came along, and CT scanners came along. We cracked the genetic code. All of that is in service of more data, more information to make us better at the science and, frankly, the art of health and medicine. But here's the deal. We've gotten so good at that, we now have another problem. So, or as one of my great heroes, the late Marv Minsky, co-founder of the MIT AI laboratory, used to talk about, it's ridiculous to live to be 100 years old and only be able to remember 30 million bytes, less than a compact disk. So think about that. A newly minted physician in 1950 would go their entire career in practice, 50 years before medical data doubled. Today, it's doubling roughly every 72 days. So think about that. You can be the best physician coming out of the best medical school in residency, knowing that a couple months from now, you'll have twice the amount of information. And I always hear, and I get to advise leaders around the world, I hear them talking about that as a problem. It's like, what an amazing opportunity. What we have to do is figure out how to use AI to bring that stuff together in a way that we can make it even more usable to do better things. So the folks at McKinsey tell us we'll experience more technological progress in the next decade than we have in the past 100 years. And the only thing I take issue with that is I think it's going faster than what they originally said. So if I were standing up here a year ago and we had been together and I started saying, hey, let's talk about ChatGPT, and I know this is a very sophisticated audience, but how many of you would have really understood that? So today, you know about it, your mom knows about it, your kids not only know about it, but they're using it to fundamentally change the way they do homework and they learn. So in the history of all human capabilities and inventions, this was the fastest time to hit 100 million users than anything else we've ever created heretofore. 2 months, 100 million users. And the funny thing is, once it hit 100 million users, a few weeks later, we went from version 3 to version 4, which makes version 3 at 100 million users look pretty pedestrian. So that's the velocity of change we're dealing with. And oftentimes, when I'm working with people like you and others, people are talking about the challenge of AI, and many times it's less about the capabilities and, frankly, more about what I call the velocity of change. So if you look at what economists and social anthropologists talk about, most of our systems, most of the way we've been trained, we've learned, everything operates on what's known as linear growth. So there's this steady state progress. So something comes along with technology, it produces incremental change. There's a little gap between when it's created and when you start seeing adoption. As adoption increases, typically there's a gap between that adoption and the policymakers running to catch up. So that's the way the world works. That's what we're used to. That's the way leaders lead. But I believe, and if you just look at that last statistic, we're also going into what economists talk about, which is exponential growth. And so economists talk about it, mathematicians actually have formulas to figure it out, but the exponential growth curve looks like this. It normally starts looking like linear change. And then all of a sudden you have this huge hockey stick of change, which, I mean, think about what's happened just in the last year with what's known as generative AI. So we're seeing that, and if you look at this slide, what's typically between those two things is what's known as the adaptation zone. Sooner or later, we'll all figure it out. Those who lean in early instead of resisting are typically the ones that figure it out sooner, and they use it to their advantage. And to me, that's the value proposition for any of you using data, trying to make progress in the work you do. Finally, what's interesting to me is, and it's not just my opinion, it's groups like Gartner and McKinsey doing a lot of research to say, if you're a successful leader in health and medicine today, that doesn't guarantee anything when it comes to if you believe we truly are moving towards digital and AI transformation. There's a new set of hard and soft skills that if you don't have, you not only will not be successful in the future, but your career may look more like roadkill, to be honest. So a lot of things happening, and those who resist, okay, that's one path, and you get to choose. Do you resist or do you lean in? So I'm going to start going towards closure. So one of the other big challenges, I believe AI has a big PR problem. So think about everything you've been reading in the last year, and I think I said it yesterday on stage. It kind of goes like this. First, we're all going to lose our jobs, and then it's going to basically take over the human race, even though we created it. Boy, that sounds pretty good to me. How about you? We have a narrative issue. Everyone's talking about the existential threat. And I'm here to say, let's change it. Yes, there are risks. we need to put guardrails around it. But let's also start talking about the existential opportunity to make everything dramatically better. So I did a piece for CEO Magazine 2 months ago, and basically they interviewed me, and the whole attempt was to change the narrative of why AI is set to become an important healthcare tool, not a threat. So we don't have time today. I actually teach workshops and whole classes on AI and driving value, but here's the world's fastest lesson, which is find your AI superpowers. The number one thing to do is you don't have to be a technical expert. You don't have to know how algorithms work. How many of you know how the apps that you use on your smartphone actually work? Does it matter? Do you think about it, or do you just do it? So find your AI superpowers by understanding what it's good at and what it's not. And the panel up here was just kind of referencing this. So in a nutshell, everything on the left is what AI is good at, better than humans. And just let's remember, the human brain is so smart, we started figuring out how to outsource things like this to be even better. But everything on the right is what humans are good at now and will likely remain good at in the foreseeable future. Reasoning, judgment, imagination, empathy, creativity, problem solving. Think about the care process if you're a clinician. It needs both. And the idea to drive value is how do we take everything on the left, bring it in behind the humans, with them in control to make them better at the things they care about, their patients and consumers care about. So to put a finer point on that, because many times you hear about, should we train fewer radiologists? There was just the question up here of in 10 years, will basically AI be your doctor? And I won't respond to that. But the key is understanding we need both. AI, the value of what's uniquely human. So to put a finer point on that, I'm not a data scientist, but I've put data together, I've used AI, and I'm here to announce there's a silent killer among us that you may not have heard about before. You see, I've used this data to say there's almost a perfect correlation between per capita cheese consumption and the number of people who died by becoming tangled in the bedsheets. I think that's a longevity issue. So here's the thing, anyone going to the gala tomorrow night? If we can all agree to stay away from the cheese platters, we may be able to save lives. So do you see where I'm going with this? Give me data, give me tools, I can correlate almost anything. But the ability to bring all those human characteristics in behind it to make sense, to make decisions, is really the opportunity. But when you don't understand that, that's where you start hearing all the narratives about how AI is first going to take all of our jobs and it's going to enslave us, and there won't be work. The narrative has to change. There's tremendous opportunity for all of us, and it's a matter of are you leaning in or are you resisting? So I'm going to close quickly by, so one of the coolest things I got to do in the last few months is Inside Precision Medicine came to me, and they were doing a big virtual event. And they said, we want to pair you with Dr. Eric Topol, who is one of my heroes, author of Deep Medicine, The Patient Will See You. But instead of doing that normal podcasty structured thing, they said, we want to put you in a virtual room, you and Eric, and we just want you to have a conversation, unstructured. You can't plan it, you can't talk in advance. We just want to throw you together and talk. And oh, by the way, we want to have 3,000 people listening. So I asked Eric the question of not researchers, not people like you who are, serious experts, but practicing physicians and clinicians. What should they be thinking about? What should you tell them about AI in the future? And let me just play this tape because Eric, I thought, was brilliant in his answer.
What advice would you give to a practicing physician that's on the front lines actually practicing medicine when it comes to how to look at this and what they should be doing?
It's funny you bring that up, Tom, because I was in clinic yesterday with my fellow. And at the end of clinic, I sat down and say, Andrew, you are so lucky. You know how lucky you are? You're going to be practicing medicine in an era where you're not going to have to type on a keyboard, where your conversations, which just adjusted to discussing the physical exam and nothing else that you really need to change, are going to be making synthetic notes that you otherwise had to toil over. But more than that, all these other things, whether it's the pre-authorization, it's the follow-up appointments, it's the billing, it's the, the labs that you want to order, the next appointments, the nudges to patients. I said, we have so much work when we ask a patient to check their blood pressures and send us the data so we can adjust their medication to find the one that works and the dose that works. It's all going to be done for you. That is checking in with the patient and getting those numbers and then checking back with you as to what do you want to do. So you're so lucky, Andrew. You get to practice medicine. I said, I wish I was you. And that you're going to have help with diagnoses, and your patients are going to have a layer to approach before you. Now, having said all that, and I mean, this really happened yesterday, and he was smiling, and how, he's like 30, and I'm, twice his age, 30 something. And I wish I could go back and practice medicine in the era that is coming. But obviously, it all has to be validated. It all has to be shown that the benefit is, greatly overriding any potential drawbacks. But it will happen. It's just a matter of time now. And so it's exciting. It's just so damn exciting, really.
I've never heard Eric swear before, by the way, so he must have been pretty excited. Okay, let's wrap up. One of my favorite chapters in my latest book, Intelligent Aging, is Healthcare's Moonshot. It is my attempt to tell a story about the imperative to be doing what you do and doing it better. And let's go back to the fact there's already 8 billion of us on the planet, and we're only going to keep growing. I put this up in the session I did yesterday, but I love the quote and something to think about from AI 2041, a book that is a really fascinating read to say how the world will look 20 years from now based on the pervasive nature of artificial intelligence in everything. 500-page book. This is the sun's caught my eye. When we look back in the year 2041, we'll likely see healthcare as the industry most transformed by AI. So think about that for a moment. 20 years, I mean, in a point in time in history, it's not very long. I would be willing to bet many of you have been on your career path for at least a decade, maybe 2. But the idea is, I love data, I love history, but when you look at history, it happens day by day, week by week, month by month. And, the thing is, getting to 2041, every one of us have the ability to put our hands on the steering wheel and help drive that. So where we end up 20 years from now really, is based on all the work, all the thinking that each of you and you as a group are doing. And it really is up to us to drive it and not wait for someone else. Anyway, that's it. If any of this resonates, would love to get connected. My main focus on social media is LinkedIn, just my name. I'm on Twitter. I've got a website. If any of you actually want to communicate with just my name, Tom Lawry, at secondcentury.tech. With that, I hope you have a great lunch. Thanks.